Hey guys, so this is day three of Inktober, and the prompt for day three is bulky, right? Um, what I originally wanted to do for day three was draw Batman with Alfred taking off the mech suit that he wore in Batman versus Superman, Batman v Superman. And I wanted that to be the thing that I drew for day three, but then the news about Jamie Foxx coming back in the third Spider-Man movie came out, and I knew for a fact that I wanted to paint or draw something Spider-Man related. And I was like, all right, Spider-Man doesn't really wear a lot of bulky suits. I mean, he's wore them in the comics before, but he doesn't necessarily wear those really heavy bulky suits a lot. Um, So I was like, all right, I want to paint something Spider-Man related, but still have that entire idea of bulky being in place. So I was like, all right, let me just draw Iron Man with him. And I am not the biggest fan of the relationship that uh, Peter has with Tony in the movies because I mean, I prefer Spider-Man being independent. I prefer Spider-Man being a hero on his own who, like, comes to his own accord and everything. And I don't necessarily want to see that happen through Iron Man, right? Uh, but then again, I mean, like the news of Jamie Foxx coming back is very exciting because it allows for the other live action versions of Spider-Man showing up the future of the in the future of the timeline that Spider-Man has in the MCU. So that seems pretty exciting. That's the thing. Like, I'm fine with Spider-Man having a mentor as long as the mentor himself is a version of Spider-Man. Like, that's what I'm personally uh, a little more entertained by. Because I mean, sure, the whole Iron Man Spider-Man dynamic was okay. Like, it was entertaining for sure. But I personally prefer a version of Spider-Man mentoring a younger version of Spider-Man. Like, that's why I really love what Miles has with Peter because it makes sense for Peter to be that mentor for Miles, to be that teacher who shows him how to be Spider-Man because Peter is Spider-Man, right? And the the idea or the argument that, oh, all right, Tony is a big time hero in the MCU, and that's why he's teaching Peter how to be one as well. I mean, that comes into play, absolutely, which is a very valid point. So it does make sense that people like the dynamic that Iron Man has with Spider-Man in the movies, but I am personally not the biggest fan. But because we were doing something related to bulk, it made sense to draw Iron Man, and I specifically drew Iron Man in a very streamlined version of the Hulkbuster armor because I really like the way the Hulkbuster suit looks. But I am not the biggest fan of how chunky it is and how big it is. I like my superhero suits to look very streamlined, which is essentially what I ended up doing with this as well. I made his suit look sleek, um, very slender, very form fitting, but still have that added bulk, which is why Iron Man looks gigantic in this drawing that I'm making. I mean, because the Hulkbuster suit itself is enormous. Tony practically, like his actual size, he's practically like half or like maybe a little bit more than that in comparison to the actual height and the width of the suit. And I really wanted to contrast that with the way Peter looks. So the way I drew Pete was I made him very slender, I made him kind of skinny, and I made him relatively small because there's not much of a difference between uh, the the height that Spider-Man stands at compared to Tony when he's out of his suit. So I really wanted to show how big the Hulkbuster is in this drawing that I'm making, which is why Spider-Man is as small as he is, and which is why Tony's head looks tiny. compared to the rest of his body. So that was all very intentional. I wanted to have that really comical look. Again, I was just reading up about movies and how superhero fatigue might become a thing very soon. And again, the only thing that people compared it to 90% of the time in all the articles that I read or all the forum posts that I read were Western movies. And Westerns used to be huge back in the day, but then again, I mean, that trend seemed to die down as well. I mean, you have a few Westerns coming out now, but then again, they're not like major heavy hitters in the film market. Superheroes, on the other hand, are. So I was just reading about that because I mean, I love superheroes. I love drawing them. I love making my own superheroes. I love writing stories for them and all that. I just really like the idea of a superhero, right? So I obviously don't necessarily want superhero fatigue to be something that sets in. Uh, at least not for a while. At least, and this might sound a little selfish, but at least not until I've made a career out of drawing them for a pretty considerable period of time. Uh, but then seeing the way the MCU is progressing, seeing the way these other properties are coming out, DC is again getting their act together, which is obviously nice to see because it really allows for variety to exist in a market that's bombarded with movies centering around people wearing spandex and going out and fighting crime. Uh, so, I mean, yeah, I like the variety it's bringing. The thing that I'm a little cautious about is this whole multiverse thing that both the studios are trying to do right now. Right? Flash comes out in 2022, I believe. That's the same year Doctor Strange is coming out. And the Flash brought in Michael Keaton to play his version of Batman. They've got alternate versions of all these superheroes that are rumored to pop up and everything, which is great, obviously, because I love the Flash. Flash was my third favorite superhero for sure. Like, the first is always going to be Spider-Man, followed by Superman, followed by the Flash. Um, so I mean, I'm obviously excited about that. But then Doctor Strange uh, is coming out the same year, and Tom Cruise is apparently rumored to play Iron Man in that. And I mean, with the whole news about Jamie Foxx coming back, it does seem pretty likely that a multiverse might become a thing that's happening. So obviously, it allows for the same idea to be tackled in different ways, which does give the audience more variety to choose from as far as like having different versions of the same thing is concerned. But then again, I really wanted these studios to do something different. I feel like DC got to multiverse before Marvel did by a long stretch because Marvel hasn't necessarily tapped into the multiverse yet. Wonder Vision might become the thing that does that, but then again, DC already did that like a year ago when Crisis came out, right? With the whole thing happening. Not just that, I mean, multiverse has been a thing for a very long time on the CW shows to just generally compare the two. I feel like DC's got in there long before Marvel ever like even thought of bringing the multiverse into their cinematic universe. But then again, I mean, Marvel does have a track record of having pretty solid films and having like concise films that are well written, well acted, well directed, well produced, and everything. So I mean, you gotta think because like part of me thinks that okay, fair enough. Like it does make sense for there to be two different studios doing the same thing, just doing it in extremely different uh ways, and the way they're going about it is totally different. So yeah, I mean that does make sense. Again, with Snyder Cut coming out, I don't necessarily know what they're gonna do with the multiverse there, but it does seem pretty exciting because I mean, obviously I'm a huge Marvel fan. Like I'm a huge Marvel fan, right? I've grown up watching Spider-Man. Spider-Man's been an extremely important part of my life the entire time, uh whether it's related to my art journey or just me in general. Like he's been a pretty huge part. So obviously I'm a big Marvel fan, but DC is where my money's mostly always been. because the characters there are larger than life. I mean, I really like the humanized struggles that these Marvel characters face. I mean, having the powers that they have, and going through the same thing that regular folks do. So it does have its own charm. It does have its own appeal. But I love how larger than life the DC characters are. And that's kind of always where my money was, especially with the whole Justice League animated show that used to air back in the day. I mean, that's where I got my first exposure to the DC heroes properly. Right? I mean, everybody knew Batman and Superman and all that, but to actually see them on screen together, interacting, fighting, all of that, it was great. And that's kind of where my love for animation started as well, which is why I'm pursuing animation right now. Um, and the Bruce Timm shows were what pushed me in that direction. So then again, I mean, which again does help a lot. Um, I'm mostly done with the painting right now. I'm trying to figure out the way the colors would look on this and everything. I wanted the line art to have this really red and blue tint to it. Again, that's something that I've elaborated on before. My process includes me applying a base color to the line art and then applying an overlay layer on top of that and then figuring out the way the colors would interact with the light and dark that I'm putting in there, which is essentially what I'm doing with this piece as well. Because I mean, I wanted the Iron Man suit to look like something that's different from the suits that he wears in the movies, but like still be kind of in line with that. So when I ended up designing this, it's streamlined. It's not too heavy looking. It's not too bulky looking, but it's still bulky enough to hopefully qualify for the Inktober prompt list. So that's what I wanted to do. Again, the pose is directly inspired from what Westerns used to do, where rodeo used to be a big thing. And that's essentially what I was trying to capture here as well. I totally forgot why I brought up Westerns in the first place until now. So yeah, anyway, that was my primary inspiration for this video. I wanted Spider-Man to be riding around on Iron Man's huge suit. So I just put the Hulk poster in, I put the Stark Industries logo in and everything. Um, and yeah, I think I'm mostly done with the Iron Man armor because I wanted the Iron Man armor to look kind of like it's been through some shit. So I like add these scrapes to his suit. I add some discoloration to it and all that. That's there because I mean it's a metal suit that I mean it's he's fought the Hulk with it. So there is obviously going to be some level of there's obviously going to be some level of damage that it's taken. So I wanted there to be these scrapes and everything. So I color correct a little bit. I add some color dodge. I again go ahead and add an overlay layer to really bring out those shadows and everything. Um, Again, put one more pass of color balance on this whole thing. And then I just figure out the way Spider-Man's webs would stick to Iron Man's suit. Just fix all of that up, get Spider-Man's eyes in place. I then start applying chromatic aberration. Again, as I explained in my last video, chromatic aberration is a slight discoloration that happens when printing inks overlap each other during the printing process, and that essentially creates this really overlapped red, uh, blue, and greenish look, which is essentially what I wanted to go with here as well. Again, as I said in my last video as well, it was heavily seen in uh, in the animated movie Into the Spider Verse, obviously, which was uh, extremely extremely huge. Not just in the superhero market of films, but like in the animated uh, genre as well. It won the best picture, best animated feature Oscar as well. So I mean, it was pretty big. So I'm mostly done with the painting, just adding a few highlights, and then we are done. I added my sign on his left boot because I wanted it to be visible. But yeah, that's day 3 of Inktober. Please like, comment, subscribe. Links for my socials in the description below. Uh, Let me know how your experience with Inktober has been so far in the comments. I really want to hear your stories. I really want to see what you've made of the entire process. Also, let me know if you've participated in Inktober before, what your success stories with Inktober were, or whether you did a few drawings and then just like completely fell off and then didn't continue doing it. Just whatever it is, whether you have any stories that are good or bad, or you have any pieces that you really, really hold close to yourself that were made during the October period, just let me know. And that would honestly bring this really uh, good sense of community that I really want to foster in people here, because that's, I mean, as I said in my last video as well, this channel is essentially uh, to be a documented process of the way I go about making these paintings, and for me to figure out where I want to be in the art world, and for people to understand that I don't necessarily have my entire career figured out just yet, the way a lot of people would also not have it in place when they're starting out. So yeah, I mean, that's essentially what this is for. So just let me know your stories in the comments below. Please again like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram. That's where I post my work first before anywhere else. So yeah, all of that. I'll see you guys next time.